Hey guys, it's Dr. Ivy Brennan here, and I'm really excited because we're going to be doing another live interview. So about 2 weeks ago, we interviewed Melissa King talking all about mental health and herpes. And today I'm really excited to have Alexis Pace, who's going to be talking about women and ADHD. If you are watching us for the first time or the manyth time, definitely don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss all the great content that we are putting out. And if you like the video, please do not forget to like it. So Alexis here is a neurofeedback trainer. Just going to tell you a little bit more about Alexis. So Alexis is also an artist and entrepreneur who has spent over 2 decades on a healing journey, addressing chronic pain, trauma, endometriosis, and undiagnosed ADHD, which led to anxiety and depression. After years of talk therapy and various healing methods, she found NeurOptimal Neurofeedback. This gentle yet powerful process has reset her nervous system, enabling her to fully embrace her true self, a version previously unattainable due to constantly overactive nervous system. In 2022, Alexis became a certified NeurOptimal trainer under the tutelage of her mentor. This training deepened her commitment to guiding others through their own transformations. Alexis blends her unique personal insights with professional expertise to empower individuals to reclaim their lives and well-being, passionately supporting them on their healing and growth journeys. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today, Alexis, about women and ADHD. So to kick it off, I just really love your journey into this work. And so maybe tell us more about like how you came to find out you had ADHD and what led you to neurofeedback.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having me here and on your channel. And hi, audience. This has been, the roads that we take, there's where we think we're going, and then there's where we go. And this is definitely an example of that. I fall into the category of what's called the lost generation, which is Gen Xers who never got diagnosed. It's women, not primarily women. It is female identified. And they basically missed it because there's more than one type of ADHD. The typical ADHD that we all think of still stereotypically is the little boy who can't sit still in class. And unfortunately, that's not how it manifests for most young women and girls. And so even today, it's better than it was, but they're still not diagnosed in time. So for me, when I started taking standardized tests around like 2nd and 3rd grade, they started to realize, that my teachers knew I was intelligent enough and that the standardized tests were reflecting some sort of struggle. It's not uncommon, what's called I don't want to use that word, a secondary, I don't want to say complementary, I just hate with the word comorbidity because, and there's a better word, but I never remember it. Hold on, I make notes so I remember. Co-occurring condition. See, this is a trick that I'd make. I will forget, so I will write it down. So it's not uncommon for a co-occurring condition, and sometimes one of those is caught, but not the ADHD. So the dyslexia was caught, but by the time they diagnosed me with it, the unofficial term is self-corrected dyslexia. So basically, I just need a little extra time, but I already had accommodated for it for myself. I didn't get officially, ADHD was mentioned when I started seeking out therapy after college. I was struggling with so much anxiety and depression. I was crying every week and couldn't figure out why. And so I finally sought out some professional help. And I feel like the psychiatrist at the time just sort of said in passing, you know, you're ADHD, right? And I was like, okay. And that was basically the extent of the conversation. And I think that she and my therapist thought I knew what that meant, but I didn't. And I handled it the same way I was taught to handle my dyslexia, which was, okay, you have that, don't let it define you, move on.
Mm.
So it wasn't until, it's really, I can't talk about my ADHD without talking about the endometriosis.
Right, of course.
Because
I just was curious. So
yeah.
Was this like early 2000s that they first were throwing out ADHD with you? Late 90s? You don't have to date yourself.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't care. Yeah, early 2000s.
Yeah,
early
yeah.
2000s. Yes. I was like, yeah, I'm old. It was definitely early 2000s. And so even then it was still unusual. Like even now I was looking up some stats, and girls still get diagnosed, boys get diagnosed 2 to 1. And girls on average get diagnosed a minimum of 4 years later. So even if they're catching young women and women identified younger, it's still more like 23 as opposed to 16, 17. And that's that's your entire high school and college experience if you're fortunate to go to matriculate. Those are really important years that even now they're getting better, they're still kind of being lost. So for me, the anxiety was so overwhelming in school. I would have headaches for the first 2 weeks of school. Every time we went through new syllabus, the anxiety would just kind of overwhelm me. And then the adaptation I learned in my household was, well, you're intelligent, you'll figure it out. So a lot of us compensate with the high intelligence we have. And so that furthers the masking and the misdiagnosis. So in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with suspected endometriosis. I started to have increasing pain, and I don't want to go too much down that rabbit hole because that is at least another one or two topic. But there was one of the medications I was on, one of the psych meds I was on, that was making me sicker, and it was with the endo. So I had started on my journey of using integrative health because birth control was making everything I tried traditionally made me sicker. So it turns out that I don't detox well. For those who know, it's an MTF. I have both MTHFR mutations. So anything added in sort of chemically, my body just doesn't know how to process it.
And MTHFR, if you don't know anything about it, basically we're just talking about a specific form of folate, which is the active form of folate, methylfolate, and about 10 to 15% of the population actually have mutation for the activation, basically.
Right.
It has a whole other issues, and I think I have some things on my website. And
I'm sure you've done a video on this already.
Yeah.
So basically, once we realized that the mood level I was on was too toxic for me, I came off of it. But it was sort of controlling or mitigating a lot of my ADHD symptoms. So I didn't actually feel the ADHD until I came off of that medication, and that was more recent. That was COVID. Everything is +5 for COVID years. So I probably 2016, 2017. And that's when I started to actually feel the ADHD that my therapist had been mentioning to me. And so I remember sitting in her office one day and she just said, which part of ADHD don't you understand? And I basically just went all of it. And it wasn't until that moment that I admitted I didn't know what she was talking about. And she realized that I didn't know what she was talking about. And so I started a journey of just educating myself, because she, to her credit, always said, it's not about changing yourself. It's about making adjustments for yourself.
Right.
But I wasn't hearing it because we hear what we hear when we hear it. And one of the things that I've learned for myself is that it's really hard for me to read nonfiction. But I can do documentaries and I can do podcasts. So I was just like, I bet there's a podcast about women and ADHD. And at that time, there were only 2. I think there's at least 18 now, maybe more. But there's a wealth of knowledge finally online. And I just listened to all the symptoms and realized all of the things I was struggling with were ADHD related. And I just thought I was kind of broken. And it's very easy to start like turning it in on yourself. And I think that's the worst part of the misdiagnosis, the shame cycle and the self-flagellation that comes from not understanding ourselves. The biggest ones for me are, I fall in the camp that I'm highly sensitive, right? So I'm sensitive to sound, I'm sensitive to texture. In heat, I get more sensitive. If I'm agitated, I get more sensitive. I'm not great with crowds. I really just thought I was messed up. And it's like, no, I'm having sensory overload. And if I can calm my nervous system, then the sensory overload is less, and then I can mitigate for it. So I started learning, and then I actually worked with an executive function coach, which was fantastic. That's still on the new side, but a friend of mine who has a daughter who was diagnosed with ADHD was mentioning that, and I was like, what is that? And so around that time, let's see. Okay, yes. So during the lockdown for COVID, I couldn't calm my nervous system back down. At that point, I was already meditating and doing acupuncture, and I had really integrated a lot of other wellness practices to calm myself, and I could not. I was kind of stuck in hypervigilance. And so I was talking to my therapist, big plug for good therapy. And she had mentioned neurofeedback to me before, but I was already, I'm seeing a therapist, I'm seeing a PT, I had to do acupuncture, I like had a full schedule and was trying to work too. But with COVID and lockdown, I had time suddenly. So I started neurofeedback, which calmed my nervous system enough to then integrate the tools I had already, especially with the executive function coach. So that kind of brings me to today. I know that was kind of a big sweeping arch. So
yeah, and I think that there's actually what I'm probably going to do, because you give us a lot of information. I want to kind of like tease out some of the things that you talked about, so that we can get like a little bit more specific. And
absolutely.
I guess like first off, women with ADHD. I guess like two questions. Like, why are we seeing a rise, and then why is it diagnosed so late, do you think?
Yeah.
Great. And then, because again, like that's really setting young women at a disadvantage to their male counterparts who have already been diagnosed. Again, I'm not going to talk so much about the medication, but maybe medication can help them, or other therapies. And these women might be not getting into the colleges that they want, or being able to, or struggle in both high school and college. So yes. Is it on the rise, and why the late diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So again, I'm an expert in my ADHD, and I share what I've learned along the road. I do the same thing with my endometriosis journey. Nobody's trained me to be a specialist, but I'm a specialist in my ADHD, and I just share what I've learned. But I was reading, there was a study done recently. They're actually analyzing the stimulant medication and the demographics with the stimulant medication. And what they saw was, in this study, the number of prescriptions for women doubled from 2020 to 2022.
So like Adderall, Vyvanse.
Yeah, both stimulant, and I think actually I don't want to misquote it. I think it was only the stimulant medication. I don't think they were looking at the non-stimulants. But yes, Adderall, Vyvanse, the off-brand ones. Yeah, exactly.
These come up a lot in my
practice. And what they noticed was, I mean, first of all of us were struggling, and our whole world shifted. Those of us who were fortunate enough to work at home had to completely create structure where there hadn't been any before. And that's an executive function, right? Sequencing and structure. And so if you've taken away the structure from us, and we now need to try to create it on our own, we're going to struggle. Then you add in women who have children at home, and their primary function is to be parent and work and take care of the household, you've tripled their load, the executive function is going to start screaming because what they were doing and managing suddenly becomes unmanageable. And that's certainly true for sort of, it was age 20 to like 40. And then the other side is, I'm a Gen Xer, we're all going through menopause now. And when menopause kicks in, your hormones drop, your brain functioning shifts, and all the compensations we had already suddenly stop working. And so it's not like we suddenly have ADHD. We've always had ADHD. It just wasn't diagnosed. The rest is societal. I mean, I could go on a rant about women's health and girls' health. We have the same problem with endometriosis is missed a lot in teens. And on average, it's getting better, but on average, most women aren't successfully diagnosed until they're in their 30s. And depending on the manifestations of their endo, they've been in agony since 12. That's unacceptable. It's getting better. I'm not going to say anything political. It has historically been getting better, but women's health falls in that category of like it's missed or it's dismissed.
And I think also a big part of it dismissed has to do with lack of effective treatments.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, they still don't even understand what causes endometriosis.
There's so many theories.
Theories.
It comes up a lot in my practice, all the different manifestations. Yeah. And I would say no two endo cases are the same. Even the symptoms are, this not an endo conversation, and that could be, again, like a whole other discussion.
Happy to come back for that. Yes. I mean, what I can say is the one theory I've heard so far is there's more than one cause, and that's the only thing that makes sense to my brain at this point, because it can vary so much. Like, I didn't have pain until I was in my 30s, where other women started, in their teens. So it's anyway. But this isn't an endo session. But for me, the healing journey is there. I can't talk about one without talking about other. But I think, so that's one of the main things. And then of course, there's more than one kind of ADHD. Depending on which specialist you talk to, there's either 3 types or 7 types. Some of the specialists have come up with their own subtypes. But the type that women and girls tend to be is the inattentive type, which it sounds like you can't pay attention, and you kind of can't, but it has less to do with the hyperactivity. There's so much focus on the hyperactivity. Our hyperactivity, be it socialization or our type, tends to be turned internally. So I may be sitting in my seat, in class, I was a good girl. My hands were folded, my thing was on the table, I was listening, but it took a lot of energy to listen. And so my brain is the hyperactive part, right? Like my mind is constantly moving. So,
but you're not constantly, your physicality is not.
My physicality is not constantly moving.
You're not fidgeting.
I'm not fidgeting much. I actually try to allow more now because it's a masking technique. So one of the things, I don't even know if I've been doing it yet, I have these prayer beads, and I wear them a lot because they help my brain when I'm touching something tactile, and when my hands are in motion, it actually helps me think clearer. And so I will be in a meeting just kind of playing with them, not realizing I'm playing with them, but it's helping me concentrate. And so I've been, just as an act of kindness to myself, I have been allowing myself to fidget more, move more. If I feel the impulse to get it up, not suppress it. Because mostly that's what I was doing. It's not that I didn't want to get up and run around. I was told I couldn't or shouldn't. And that's how we get socialized.
Oh, interesting. So it could be like still the same compulsion that a typical male going through ADHD have, but because we're socialized, women are typically socialized a bit different.
Yes.
Then, interesting.
And it's a combination of the two, right? I mean, there are literally, I have been in class with some women who have the hyperactive and they have no control over the hyperactivity and they're walking around. But for us, when you have more of the inattentive type plus socialization, that's where it gets missed, right? So a lot of times what gets picked up first is, like for me, the anxiety and depression, which may be a co-diagnosis, or is it just an expression of untreated ADHD. I mean, I've had these conversations now with my therapist. I'm like, I don't even know if I have depression and anxiety or if that was just a side effect of untreated ADHD.
Right. I guess maybe even go into a little bit more specifics of, you were touching upon like how ADHD is different in women, but maybe even being more specific, like what are, I guess, like some of the main signs and symptoms of more of like what we typically would see in a woman, though of course like there is variations,
right?
But like kind of like on average, what are some
Yeah. So for me, when I look at the list of executive functioning, that's where I really start to identify with the traits. So time management issues, being on time, knowing how to manage your time, completing projects.
No, I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
In that I feel that many of us suffer from that, even if we, so how much, because like, when do you know you've crossed the line of like basic time management issues? Because things also just gonna come up, and
right.
I mean, putting boundaries versus like someone who more or less probably has the diagnosis.
Yeah, so, and that's a great question. I mean, in our busy society, we're trying to do too many things in a day and we're trying to shove things in a time component that's not possible. What I would say is, for me and some of the people I work with, we literally perceive time differently. I had a client who was struggling to be on time to work, and I walked her through a process that I had learned about how to figure out how long it actually takes to travel. And for some reason, we all think everything's only going to take 30 minutes. We literally believe, even though like Brooklyn, Manhattan, that's 45 minutes to an hour, if the trains are running right, we still don't think it's only going to be 30 minutes. So if you leave late, you can't be on time. And I would say typically, I don't know if you're neurotypical or not, but what I would say is normally, I hate using the word normally, your average woman, your average person, and women in particular, because we're talking about women, who was late to something and then would say, I was late. Why was I late? Do I need to leave earlier? Our brains don't do that. It's just an, oh, shoot, I'm late again. I'm going to be in trouble. And then we repeat it and we repeat it because we can't figure out how to break the cycle because our brains don't do that. The image I always have for myself is a wind-up toy hitting a wall. I don't know if those are still around, but like a wind-up toy, if it hits a wall, it just keeps hitting the wall over and over again and doesn't move until somebody comes and turns it. Yeah. That's the way my brain gets stuck. That's the way my clients' brains get stuck. We actually, without the additional tools, can't right the ship because we're stuck in a broken executive function loop.
Okay, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, and that's very different than, oh, I'm late. It's like, and I know some people who literally are 2 hours late every time, and they don't mean to be. And this is where the ADHD part comes in, where this self-hatred kicks in, right? I'm late. I'm a terrible person. I suck. I'm going to get fired. And then just kind of this cycle of, something that I didn't even realize was a mantra was, why can't I? Everybody else can seem to do this. Why can't I? Things that seem like a fairly straightforward task to people take me 4 times as much energy. So that's the other thing.
Which would definitely sign someone up for either feeling depressed or anxious.
Exactly. Or both. Exactly. And I also have used, being in the chronic pain world, I came across the idea of spoons and spoonies.
Yes,
right?
I did. Actually,
did you do a spoonie?
Yeah, back in my, I was doing a lot of interviews. I actually interviewed a psychotherapist who only works with extreme chronic, and she herself identifies as a spoonie. And basically, spoonie means you have so many conditions. How do you juggle all these spoons? I have endo, I have rheumatoid arthritis, I have IBS, I have.
Well, and my understanding about the spoons is it was actually a woman who had MS who was explaining to her friend about why some days she can do some stuff and some days she can't. And it's about, and the spoons are literally units of energy, right? And so ideally, with a good night's sleep, you start with 5 units of energy, 5 spoons, and then you spend them throughout the day. But if you've had a poor night's sleep, you only start the day with 2 spoons, and you have to guard those spoons. If you haven't slept for a week, you actually have a deficit of spoons. And I love that analogy both for chronic pain, but also with ADHD, it's units of energy, right? And if it takes us 3 times as much to do something that somebody else can do easily, it's taking us that much more energy. And that's why things like project completion, it's like, I'm tired. I'm tired. I haven't finished that.
And then you've been throwing the term executive function. And I think some of our viewers may not be familiar with that term is. So maybe talk a little bit more about what exactly you're talking about when you're talking about executive function. And does that also help women with ADHD potentially even more so than the male counterparts?
That's a great question. Okay, so let me back up and just explain what executive function is. So executive function is the brain in terms of sequencing. It's all the functions of time management. Actually, I have the full list because I never remember all of them. Hold on. Planning, organizing, time management, starting tasks, that's a big one. Working memory, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. Those are big ones. And the thing that helps me think about them is like almost like a C-suite of managers, and each manager has one of those jobs. In my head, 2 of the managers were working and doing all the work, and the other ones had their doors closed and their feet were up on the table. And so the 2 managers who weren't even supposed to be doing those jobs, were trying to do those jobs, weren't doing them well, and everybody was mad at each other.
I think everybody can kind of like knows what that experience is like, being in like corporate America where you downsize and everybody takes everyone else's job. And then,
Yeah. And then things aren't done well, things fall through the cracks, people are mad at each other, and the dysfunction just kind of spirals until there's an intervention of some sort. With executive function, I don't actually know if there's any difference between male-identified and female-identified individuals. That's a great question that I'd be curious to follow up on. I'll take a look.
And then I guess, is the strategy to, identify the areas of weakness in executive function and kind of like boost them up, or knowing like your strengths in how to like prioritize or strategize them for the deficits, or a little bit of both?
Right. I would say yes and, right? It's a bit of both. And then to go back to your question about medication versus executive function. One of the people that I follow who talks about ADHD and is a coach, and she's an advocate for medication, which is fine, both stimulant and non-stimulant. I personally don't actually have a strong opinion one way or another. I just know for me, medications make me sicker, so it's not an option. And that's really it. But the medication, like anything, like if you're taking something for anxiety and depression, it's just the start, right? It just allows you to then do the other work. So the medication alone or integrative practice like with you is still just the start, right? And then it hopefully allows us to then learn the skills we missed or learn them in a way, like most of these skills were taught to us in ways we didn't understand them, or they weren't taught to us at all because other people's brains apparently just do them automatically. They see someone and they just do it. They're skills and they can be learned. Thankfully to neuroplasticity, a lot of this stuff can be shifted. But also we're all good at some things and not so good at other things. And so it's a question of what's important to you? What do you want to do? What are your goals? How important is this? Like if you're working for yourself, maybe time management doesn't matter as much. If you're working a 9-to-5 job and you can't get to work on time, that's something to focus on. And then bring help in, right? Like we can't do everything ourselves anyway. I actually heard somebody say the other day, delegating is self-care.
Oh my gosh,
And
yes.
I was like,
I agree. We talked a little bit about that actually in the herpes mental health interview.
Excellent,
Yes.
excellent. I love that. So, for me, I am fortunate enough to have enough excess income to hire somebody to help clean. Cleaning is something both my partner and I struggle with. Neither of us want to do it. It's not how we want to spend our weekend. We have trouble organizing ourselves to do it. We can do the day-to-day, but not the scrubbing. And it's like, that is a self-care action to bring
And a relationship action.
Definitely a relationship
totally
action.
agree with this one.
Yeah. And now that my business is growing, I've brought on a virtual assistant, and my only regret is not doing it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my goodness, you can go through my email, so I don't have to just open a new email account because it's full, because that's what we do. And so like, she's maintaining the emails, it's something I don't want to do. It's not a good use of my time. I will never do it well. And so, it's a hybrid of, coaching. If somebody else can do it 80% better, great. But if it is standing in the way of what you want to be doing, then it's something worth addressing.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think it is a perfect opportunity to kind of shift gears, because we're talking about like different strategies with ADHD. Why don't you tell us more about you mentioned neuroplasticity right there, and I feel like that's also like a perfect segue for what exactly is neurofeedback, and then you utilize NeurOptimal. Like what is different about NeurOptimal versus other, I guess, like devices or methods, and how is it like applicable to ADHD? Like where does that fit in to a treatment model?
Yeah, great question. So back up just a little bit of history, a little context. So biofeedback kind of became all the rage in the 1960s, which is, just to define, it's a physical system outside of us that's reflecting back to our body what we can do so we can self-adjust. So neurofeedback, under the umbrella of biofeedback, is literally it's feedback from the brain. So brain waves, so you can see it, it's the biofeedback from the cortical activity. There are two main types of neurofeedback. There's one called linear and one called dynamical. Linear. And dynamical. So I use NeurOptimal, which was developed by the Zengar Institute, and that is dynamical. And what that means is, in linear, typically you go in, they do a brain map, which is kind of a one-time capture of what your cortical activity is doing in that moment. And then your treatment is based on adjusting, like they'll read the brain map and say, okay, you need more alpha, you need more theta. And there's actually a tech who's adjusting that during the sessions. That's the historical type of neurofeedback. What the founders of the Zengar Institute wanted to say was, our brain is in constant motion. So a captured image of what our brain is doing from 3 weeks ago isn't relevant to what's happening right now. Plus, you have somebody outside of you adjusting it. They believe, and I do as well, that our body has, and I think you do in your practice, our body has the innate ability to heal itself.
Right, exactly. That's one of the
core
principles.
Yes. Exactly. So the body has the natural ability to heal itself with just a little extra help. And so that's the approach from the Zengar Institute and NeurOptimal, which is, they were waiting for technology to be fast enough to read our brain and cortical activity in real time. By the way, it's read only. Nothing's going into the brain. This isn't eStim. That's a different technology.
Which I've done, actually.
Have you? I'd be curious.
I like to do everything.
I love it. You're just like, oh, let's try it. And so what happens is the system is reading your cortical activity in real time, and then the system and the series of algorithms are reflecting back to your own nervous system so it can self-adjust. And it's the one I use myself, and I like it because my own body is guiding it as opposed to something that's being imposed from the outside. Both can be quite effective, but there's less unwanted side effects with dynamical because your nervous system is guiding it as opposed to an outside force adjusting your brain patterns, which can cause, I mean, they're not terrible, but there's side effects. There's headaches are the most common.
And so with ADHD, so how is it helpful for
Sure.
ADHD?
Right, part 2 or part 3.
I think there's some questions.
Yeah. So the NeurOptimal system itself has been cleared through the FDA as a wellness device, specifically for sleep. And so officially what I have to say is, training with NeurOptimal may improve your quality of sleep, which may improve concentration and focus.
After how many sessions?
Well, that's a good question.
Sorry, just
No, that's right. I'm like, oh, good question. So the answer is NeurOptimal is for everybody, and it depends because everybody's starting at a different place. What I can tell you is typically my clients feel a small shift within the first session or two. What I had another client who referred to it as small but incremental. So it would be a little shift, a little shift, a little shift, and then they would stack on each other so that there was a substantial shift with time. And that's part of it being gentle as well. But most people report that they felt, at least the first night, they feel like they're more present in their body, a little more grounded, maybe their sleep was a little deeper. I've had people tell me, hey, my smartwatch told me I hit a better quality of sleep. So we have some data and some feedback. And then even if their sleep isn't better, they're like, hey, I was less irritable. I didn't yell at my kids today. I was able to deal with the person at work who normally irritates me. And I was like, oh, well, that to me is a major win. And that can happen within the first 1 or 2 sessions. We typically recommend, it is training because you're training and retraining your brain. So there you need to allow,
which is similar to biofeedback.
Exactly.
Which is also training. I mean, typically we would use it like for blood pressure, like the very classic, or IBS or
Exactly. So you want to give the brain time to lay down the neural pathways and adjust. So we typically recommend about 15 to 20 sessions for that process because it's retraining. It's like going to the gym, right? You wouldn't lift weights once and then be like, hey, I'm ripped. No, it doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it doesn't.
I guess even with this idea of going to the gym, how, I guess specifically with those 10 to 15 sessions, what's an ideal frequency? Because I'm assuming if you let too much time go past, if you did one every few months, probably not going to be as effective as maybe once a week, or is every day too long? I mean, what would you say is kind of the typical frequency initially?
Yeah, I mean, so again, it depends on the individual's nervous system, right? So it depends on what's going on, how sensitive they are. It's not going to work if you do once a month, but it will take a little longer to feel the effects from it.
So that could still be effective, spreading it out.
Yeah.
Though, why would you do
Why would you want to? I mean, typically what I find is my clients are like, when can I come back? When can I see you again? I'm like, great. But for me, what I did was I did once a week for a month. And then that was great, but I actually felt like I need a little bit of space in between them just to kind of let my body, I'm very sensitive. So it was like, I need a little bit of space in between. So then I switched to every other week for another couple months. And that was what I needed at the time because a lot of things were shifting, things were clarifying. I was kind of understanding, other things I've been working on in my life in a new way. And I just needed to actually slow the stimulus down a little bit.
Interesting.
But there's other people, I know people who do retreats and they do it twice a day. For me, that's bonkers, but everybody's nervous system is different.
Wow.
So, yeah. So now, and just to kind of back up how I went from training to doing it myself, I know you said it in the intro, but I found as I was doing it and my nervous system calmed down, I was able to think clearer. And my executive function started functioning. And so I was like, okay, this is an investment in my ADHD treatment, right? I'm not taking medication. This is my treatment. And so I purchased a system myself. And then after using it for about 2 years, decided to explore working with others. That was kind of the process. And now I try to do it once a week for myself. In times of extreme stress, I try to bump it up to twice a week. But that's after 4 years of doing it, right? Like I have a different pattern laid down. I find if I go more than 2, or if I'm in the 3rd week, I notice my irritability. Like suddenly everyone's irritating me. I don't want to see anybody. And then if I look at when I did my last session, I'm like, oh, I'm overdue for my session. And my whole system just goes, oh, okay, thanks. All right, we don't hate humanity. We're not happy about what's going on right now, but we don't hate humanity, and we can be around people again.
So it sounds like also what you're saying, and probably we should also show the device and the demo, because I think some people watching this might be interested in that.
Yep.
But it sounds like it's not necessarily like you do the 3 or 4 sessions or whatever it is, and then you're cured. There's getting, I guess, like this, I guess, like initial priming, and then in order to really maintain that, there has to be some level of maintenance, which is very similar to seeing your therapist, working out at the gym, eating healthy.
Yep. So what's beautiful about it is it's cumulative and it's sustained. So for me, since it's my main ADHD treatment, that's what I do it for.
So that's your main.
That's it.
You don't take a medication?
I don't take any medications.
No medication?
No medications.
Wow, okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because also, I mean, we didn't really touch upon this, but for some people, medication is actually contraindicated for other conditions.
Yes.
So my husband, who I at some point would like him to see you, unfortunately it's a heart condition, and so he can't take
the stims. Can you take the non-stimulants?
Or I think everything is like
contraindicated.
Yeah.
So I would say, so for me, I don't take any medications because of the toxicity it causes. But I have clients who take medication, and then once we start working together, they start playing around with how frequently they take it. And so I have one client who has tapered off, not completely, but he only takes it on days where like it's a high focus day and he really needs it, but he gives his body a break the other days. What was the question? I was just saying, yeah, we were talking about, but I have another client who does have ADHD. We did a series, I was working with him when I was first practicing. We did like 20 sessions. He went off to grad school, and then he just comes back on breaks for like a little tune-up, and it still sustains him. So it really depends on the individual and what's going on with them. I have other clients, you can rent systems as well. So if there's more than one person in the household, I usually recommend just for cost efficiency to rent it.
We're kind of like in that, I mean, I want my husband to have a couple of sessions. I've had a couple of sessions, full disclosure, that we might end up also rented.
Yeah, and I think, so for me, if you want to work with me, great. If you're not in the New York City area, there's practitioners all around the country and actually all around the world. And there's plenty of people who do rentals if there's nobody close by. So if you don't work with me, that's fine. I am passionate about how effective the system is, and I just want people to have access to it. So I will give out like, hey, here's a trainer in your place, but also since it's a 2-hour drive, you might want to go for a session, try it, see if you like it, and then arrange to have rentals. Especially if there's kids. I don't work with anybody under 18, but I have people I refer to. But typically ADHD is a family thing. So a lot of times, I don't know if we talked about this, but one of the other ways women get diagnosed is their kids get diagnosed. And then as they're learning about the symptoms, they realize they have all of them too. So it's like a reverse treatment, a reverse diagnosis, I should say. And so, if they want to get a system in for the house for their kid, they should use it too. And it's wonderful when the whole household trains together. You don't have to have ADHD to use the system. It's usable for anybody.
Right. I mean, I've been doing sessions, and sometimes I have poor time management, but I feel it's more in the realm of just like life happens kind of time management issues.
Running a business, having a kid, being married, living in New York.
Yeah.
But, see, that was the other thing. So we have my favorite.
This is my favorite thing about Alexis. She always brings her little friend.
Her arm fell off. Oh no, it was her ear. Hold on.
It's like a throwback from the 80s.
So yes, I definitely, a lot of my artwork is about like inner child work that I've been doing lately. And so I use Mrs. Potato Head to demonstrate the system, and she often comes with me. So this is a Z-amp. This is from Zengar Institute, NeurOptimal specifically, and they have gotten it down to only 5 contacts. I wonder if the dance party outside is getting picked up.
We are in New York. It just happens. It happens.
It happens. It's part of life here. The contacts are sterling silver, and they're conductive, but as I said before, it's read only. And then we use, all my fun stuff down here, we use a water-based conductive paste to attach the sensors. And so two go on your right ear, 1 goes on your left ear, and then the other 2 go on the top of your head, and they always get tangled. I'm still amazed my cats haven't chewed on these yet. I mean, I hide it from them every time, but this is like cat bliss. Okay,
my son would have destroyed this by now.
There you go. Any chewer.
Yeah.
So you just put a little bit of contact paste, and then it goes on the ear, and Ivy can speak to it. You barely feel them. It's not too pinchy, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, I don't, sometimes I forget like that's there. And it's interesting. So when I go into this session, I'm anticipating like when I do acupuncture, I'm going to have like some kind of like pain, because I don't know, anyone who tells you that acupuncture is painless, it's not truthful. So there's always like something, I mean, it's tolerable, but there's always like that one.
There's
like,
going to be a zing.
There's always a zing. I'm waiting for the zing. With the whole neurofeedback, there's never a zing. And also, Alexis does a really meticulous job of taking this stuff off of you after, so it's not stuck in your hair. You can go to work right after.
Oh, thank you. I always try. We do wipes. I do both, like just alcohol wipes and 7th generation wipes. And then you just sit back and relax. The session's 33 minutes. You also listen to music. I actually
really like the music. I usually, like, when I get a massage, often, like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not into this music, but I actually enjoy the music. But maybe you can talk a little bit more about, like, so you're listening to the music, but then every once in a while, it, like, clicks out and then click, click, click.
Yeah.
What is going on there?
Yeah, so the way the system works, which is incredibly simple but powerful, is the system will read your cortical activity, and then our brain is, the way it's been taught to me is our brain is in constant motion, which is a good thing. And it's almost like a hummingbird. And so it'll be in one area and then it shifts, and it'll be one area and shifts, but it's in that flutter. So it's constantly moving and then it shifts. And what the system picks up is the shifts. So every time your cortical activity, your brain shifts, the algorithm reads it, and then you're listening to this beautiful music that's been composed for this piece, and it will just, it'll do like a pause. It sounds like, if you know what a record is, it sounds like a record skipping. If you're too young, it just sounds like something hiccuped or it paused or there's a little skip. Tech
Buffering.
Buffering. It's buffering. It's buffering. Usually the pauses are really small. Sometimes there's a larger one, which is just ganged a bunch of them up for efficiency. And what that's doing is it's speaking directly to your nervous system in its own language, right? So our nervous system responds to the change in environment. And so what the skips and interrupts do, say to your nervous system, hey, you shifted, did you mean to do that? So all it's doing is providing information. And this is what I love about this system, where it's not doing anything to you. Your nervous system then gets, like a mirror, gets told, hey, you shifted, did you mean to do that? And then your nervous system gets to decide what to do with that information. So our brain and nervous system's main goal usually is to be as efficient as possible. And so when it gets reflected back, what's happening, a lot of times it goes, oh, that is not efficient. I thought I was being efficient, but I'm not. Let's see if there's a more efficient way. And that's when the neurofeedback really starts to work, because the nervous system and brain reorganize themselves. And I often, when I'm introducing it, I talk about similar to rebooting a computer, right? So, when something's not working, we say when in doubt, reboot. But it's not just about turning it off and on. When you turn a computer off and on, it resequences and it rechecks all the links. And that's what this does. It actually helps your brain resequence so that it can get back to flexibility and resilience, which we were all meant to have and carry through our lives.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I guess because I guess we can start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Alexis, what would you say are your, maybe 2 or 3 either ADHD hacks or 2 or 3 takeaways that you would like our viewers to know about?
Sure, absolutely. So, I'll share a couple of hacks. There are a tremendous number of hacks. It's sort of like, I was thinking about the idea of how we often get obsessed with having the perfect notebook and we'll get distracted. We won't do the writing because we're searching for the perfect notebook.
Okay, yeah. I actually believe this. This is actually true. This, nobody can see this cabinet is literally all notebooks from my husband, not me.
It's a thing, I swear. It's a thing.
I never even knew this was a thing.
It's a thing.
It is a thing.
So what I want to say is there are a tremendous amount of hacks out there. And some of them are great, but if you don't have the ability to implement them, they're not going to be helpful. So it's like looking for the perfect notebook. It's not going to fix you. But there are some things that we can all do to just kind of help ourselves. And actually, even if you're neurotypical, this works. My biggest suggestion, the thing that works best for me, is to try not to pick up my phone for the first hour of the day and just keep my head as clear as possible. So I don't keep my phone in my bedroom. I use an old-fashioned alarm clock. Actually, I use 2 because I have the opposite sleep issue. I'm like a hypersomnia, so I sleep like a teenager. So I will sleep 9, 10, 11 hours of sleep. So I have to have a few alarm clocks to wake up. That's the other side. And then I really try not to be on anything, just to let my body kind of, that first hour of the morning is really important. It sets my day up well. So if I'm not on email and not on social media and doing all that stuff, that's just for everybody.
Yeah, that's actually something that is often written on a lot of my treatment plans.
Yeah.
Also, nobody is worth answering an email to at 6 a.m.
Yeah. Hold your time and honor your time. Speaking of time, for me, this is, I got this on Amazon. I think it's an older one, but this is a time cube. And one of the reasons I love it is because I'm not using my phone, but it lets me set timers. I got through grad school setting timers. I could not focus. So we often have, that's the reason why attention deficit disorder is such a weird name, because we have trouble starting and then we have trouble stopping, because we also have something called hyperfocus. So personally, I've found my biorhythm is I work in 20 and 40-minute increments. It's just the way I work. There's a Pomodoro technique, quite similar. I love that because it includes rewards and breaks. But I literally, when I'm doing something that I'm either having trouble doing or don't want to do, like if I have to do any finances or taxes or whatever, this is my go-to. And it's just a little timer. And it literally, when I turn it, can you see it? Yeah. When I turn it up this way, the 20 minutes starts and then it beeps and beeps until I turn it over, and then it'll go to 10 minutes. So it'll help me focus for 20 minutes. I do only that one thing during that 20 minutes. So it helps me start, helps me stop. Then I'll get up, turn it to 10 minutes, take a break, move around, and then come back 20 minutes. Sorry, Mrs. Potato Head, I took her ear off again. Start and stop. That helps me start tasks I'm avoiding, and it helps me stay focused and not multitask during them.
Well, there's also this concept of flow, and there's this activity doing what they call flow blocks.
Yeah.
And that's something that I integrate specifically because I don't like writing. And so having that, setting the timer, turning off all distractions, and I just focus on the writing.
Yep. Exactly. Now imagine every task felt like that to you.
Okay.
Very similar. And then the other thing that just for my brain that has been so helpful is and there's parental controls and whatnot, but I use an app called Screens, and it's free, and I can control how long I'm on any of my social media. So it gives me a built-in pause before I open anything, and then it closes it down. So like for Instagram, it's like, hey, do you really need to be doing this right now? So I have to think about it. And then, I have it to go off 15 minutes, because I find like 15 minutes is a nice little break. Anything longer, it turns into extreme doom scrolling. And so as somebody with ADHD, we do tend to have issues with impulse control.
Yeah.
And so, so it's helpful to just have something automatic. And I even put it on my email so that I don't check my email. I had broken my promise to myself of looking at my phone in the morning when my dad passed away and I was helping my mom. And that was fine at first, but I broke that habit, so I got back into it. So I don't look at my email before 11 a.m. It is locked.
That's great. Yeah, my husband has something similar. It's called Brick or the Brick. And yeah, like basically he can't access YouTube, he can't access Instagram when it's on. Although sometimes it's always like on when we actually do need to access YouTube or Instagram for some reason. I'm sorry, I can't access that.
So yeah, with Screens, then you can override it, but at least it gives you the built-in pause. And that's actually, I think, the thing that most of us with ADHD don't have, which is the built-in pause. Do I need to be doing this right now? Is this the right thing? And that's actually the main thing the neurofeedback has given me, which is it's helped my brain slow down enough to watch what I'm doing. And so, I started doing something this morning when I was getting ready to come over here, and I was able to say, put that down. If you do that, you will be late.
Right.
I never used to be able to do that.
You were on time.
I know.
She was very much on time. I was very pleased.
And that took work, right? Last night and this morning, I blocked it out. I was like, okay, it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour to get there. And I want to arrive at least 15 minutes early. And then it takes me at least 15, 20 minutes to leave when I say I'm going to leave. So I'll set an alarm for, a quarter of, and then actually leave about 10 after. And so I was on time.
Exactly.
Because I just learned how I function and accommodated the way I function, as opposed to trying to make myself function the way everybody else does, which just doesn't work.
That's great.
Yes.
So, Alexis, this has been fantastic.
Thank you so
much. I really
much.
love this conversation about women and ADHD. Of course, we have all your info in the description of the video, but what is the best way or your favorite way for people to get in touch with you, learn about you?
Yeah, I would say right now, actually, the best way is just through my website, ARIA Neurofeedback.com. There's a form right there. You can call, you can text, you can send an email. But yeah, drop me a line.
Wonderful. So again, this is Dr. Ivy Brannon, and I'm excited that September 4th, I'm doing another interview. I'm going to be interviewing Riva Pearl. She is a pelvic floor physical therapist, Revitalize Physical Therapy. We're going to be talking about postpartum pelvic floor dysfunction, as well as some other hot topics around pelvic floor. And again, if you like the video, please don't forget to like it. If you have any questions or comments after watching the recording, feel free to put them in the comment section. We're happy to answer them. And then, of course, please do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss all this interesting information.
Great conversations, great content. Always good to see you, and thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
See you next time.
Bye.